Hey everybody, welcome to Household Filmmaking. I'm your host, Christopher, and I am very excited today to have the writer and star of the Dread Central release, Dry Blood. And I saw the movie at a Dread Central screening at Film Bar in Phoenix, Arizona. It was an excellent movie. I was actually, I see a lot of indie horror movies and prepare myself to find like some good things to say about them so I don't feel awkward talking to whoever the creators were. But this one blew me away. I was so impressed. So welcome to the show, writer, director, and star. Yeah, you didn't direct Dry Blood, but you are a director. Clint, thanks for being on the show. How are you doing? What's been up?
Hey man, thanks for having me on the show. Just keeping busy. Dry Blood just came out January 15th, and just doing lots of press for it, and trying to get people hearing about the film.
Don't talk to the press, man. There you go. Oh wait, no, I'm the press. I have been watching the development of this film for a while. You'd been talking about it, and I think you had. This isn't your first. This is your first time making a feature film, but you work in film. You do props and effects for people, and you're also a musician. So where did this all start? How did this all kind of come together for you as a creator?
Well, I've just been pretty much creative my whole life. Other than music and film and writing and stuff, I also am an oil painter. So I think I just started as a visual artist, drawing and painting. And then when I was in high school, my brother got this mini DV cam, and I started making short films back then. This was in the early 90s. And then I took a hiatus basically after high school to focus on my music career, and then just maybe, 6 or 7 years ago, got back into the film business and started actually, working in the industry from an art department side of things, building and designing props and doing art for films and things like that. And then eventually I just kind of decided, hey, I want to make my own movie, and I did.
Go ahead.
Me and director Kelton Jones, who directed Dry Blood, I'd formed a writing group and for screenwriters, just to kind of help hone my craft. And my friend Chad Michael Ward, he was in the process of forming a writing group as well. So we merged the two groups into one mega group, and Kelton Jones was in Chad's group. And so that's where I met him. And we clicked right away on he wanted to go forward with producing a script that I had brought to the group, which was not Dry Blood at the time, but we moved forward with that for a while, and then rapidly discovered that it was a bigger budget project than we could possibly raise the money for at that time. So we decided to cut our teeth with a smaller film, and that's how Dry Blood kind of started.
Well, you guys did an excellent job, and what really impressed me about Dry Blood was that you kind of brought all of your available resources and skills to bear on this film. And
thank you.
They are, they are considerable. And you've worked as a prop maker. I think you had a credit on, was it Star Trek Into Darkness? You designed some of the props for that.
Yeah, in that film, have you seen that one?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's that opening sequence where they're on the volcano island, and Kirk steals the scroll, and he's running through the forest. So on that volcano island, the aliens there are called the Nibiran, and I designed and built all of their props. So the scroll that Kirk is running with, he sticks it in the tree and it unfurls. That's my design and build. And then all the weapons they have, so spears and dart launchers, and even the staff that the elder alien draws a picture of the Enterprise in the dirt with. Actually, a funny story about that prop. Originally, that was supposed to be like a cane, and I had made a couple prototypes for that. But on the day, literally, I think it was less than an hour before they shot that scene. They're all, we want it to be different. We wanted it to be this big staff. It was just a last-minute decision. So I had, boxes of parts from all the other weapons, and I just monstered that together, and probably in about 20 minutes, and then that's what is on film.
That's really cool. And you just showed a little kind of creature that you made that was I guess it's supposed to be like a toy version of a creature from the Santa Clarita Diet on Netflix.
Yeah, there's this character, Mr. Balllegs, which is this spider that is spawned out of this weird vomit ball thing. So I actually designed and sculpted the original Mr. Balllegs, and then they I don't know if they scanned it in or just built a model based on the sculpt. I assume they scanned it in because it's pretty damn close to the sculpture. And then that's just a digital animation on the show, but it's based on my sculpt. And then that was in season 2 when I did Mr. Balllegs, and then I was asked to come back in season 3 and make him a little friend, which is just a static kind of toy, a little spider with a top hat and stuff. So I was pretty stoked just to be involved in 2 seasons because it's a fun show. I do watch it.
Yeah, you seem to be able to get in on things that are right up your alley, and I want to kind of point that out to people who are aspiring filmmakers. It does seem like staying true to the things you enjoy doing rather than trying to shoehorn yourself into things just to be there or just to get the job. It does seem to pay off in the long run because after a while you get to be like the person they call on because they know that's the thing you do.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, nowadays I get a lot of offers for shows and stuff, and I can afford to be a little more picky. But when I was just starting in the business, I would absolutely take any kind of prop job that came along. And if you're getting into that side of the business, I would absolutely recommend if you get offered a job on a film or a TV show, and you're available and can do it, by all means, take the job, even if that film isn't necessarily what you're into. I mean, I've done a ton of sitcom work and lots of films that I have never watched, but it's really is a small industry, and if you take maybe a sitcom gig and you're not that into the show, and maybe the props aren't necessarily that exciting, but you're still going to learn something new. Every prop is different, and you always learn new things. And then those art department team, the prop master and the art director and the production designer, they're going to move on to other projects, and eventually they're going to move on to a project that you are going to be into. And if they liked working with you and you liked working with them, that can lead to some cool stuff. So it just kind of snowballs, so I would recommend while you're able, or before you're so in demand that you can kind of afford to turn things down, take what comes up, because you never know what that's going to lead to.
Well, let me ask you this about the jobs you didn't like. Were you obviously, you work with people, you start to get to know people and make friends. Were you showing them your other work? You going on a break or something, saying like, "Hey, and check out this personal project I'm working on," or something like that?
It's never that I didn't like the jobs. I've had fun really on every film or TV show I've ever worked on. But it's just that it might not be a show that I'm into. But even if I don't watch the show, or or it's a movie or whatever that doesn't necessarily interest me, building props is always fun. So I don't. For me, it's about the process of creating and less about who's going to see it and what format is it going to be delivered to the public. I just like building shit. So pardon my French. I just like building things, and so I always have fun regardless. And I do have a prop, a resume, and basically a little PDF with showcasing my work and a demo reel and things like that. And so I show that to people as needed. But I've found that in the business it tends to go, I just get hired by you connect with people, and if they like working with you, they're going to hire you again. And I think just being in this field, you have to be pretty well rounded in terms of being able to engineer and figure out how to make stuff. And if you're working with an art department crew that realizes that you're one of those people that can figure out how to do something, they'll hire you for whatever, even if it's not necessarily something you've done before, as long as you can figure stuff out.
Now that's I'm really glad that you said that, because in my experience, so much of not just props or effects, but filmmaking in general is solving puzzles, is figuring out how to build things and figuring out how to create things and that service the narrative.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that I don't think there's ever been a cut and dry go-to solution. I mean, people talk about movies being formulaic, and to a degree, I can see what they mean. But then again, you could, be so vague as to say, oh, like painting in, rectangular canvases is so formulaic.
Sure. Yeah.
There's within that canvas, there's always going to be things that you need to figure out and solve. It's not it's not like math. You're not going to get 2 + 2 = 4 every time.
Yeah, it's very true. And I the way I look at it is like, look, even if the project you're working on isn't necessarily up your alley, or you've read the script and it's just not great, that's okay. That's out of your control. What is in your control is the piece of art that you're creating for this project. And if you treat that like the piece of art that it is, and just do your best and try to make your contribution artistic and something that's going to be memorable on screen, if possible, depending on what you're building. If you just put love and care into your work and try to do the best that you can, that will help elevate the show. And I think when you go into a production that maybe off the bat doesn't necessarily seem that great, if everyone working on it puts the same amount of love and thought into what they're working on, you can end up with something that's really good.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And also, people might think, oh, in the prop department, oh, I've got to, come up with a phone. What's so interesting about a phone? But then again, people do notice those details. You see it in cosplayers. I mean, my wife for Halloween wanted to, I forget the name of Winona Ryder's character in Stranger Things, but she was like, where do I find that kind of phone? She's going to wrap the cord around herself and like, get a fake cigarette and that sort of thing. So even those small details might end up becoming memorable. Or Tom Woodruff at the moment, he's a big Adam West Batman phone. He's like recreating the phone from the Batcave in the original Adam West series. So yeah, you may end up accidentally creating just that little detail that people catch and does make the show more memorable, even if you don't see it at first. Another thing I want to say is that sometimes, projects start out seeming not that great, but when enough people contribute to it and they care, and they put that caring into the part that they're doing, something kind of magical happens. You get something that you didn't expect. The projects do really take on a life of their own become something that you didn't anticipate. I've certainly read scripts to movies that I then saw get produced that I was like, this script is terrible. But then the movie came out and they made it work in a way. So, yeah. I mean, same, like, depending on the project, I don't always get the full scripts in advance. If some of the project, like Star Trek, was very hush-hush, I didn't even get a page of script. I just got meetings where I took notes and was told about things, But most of the time, the majority of the time, I will get a script in advance. And I've read, a few things, and I won't mention names because I don't want to disparage anyone. But I've read some scripts before, and I thought, man, this is why if I had read this script as a producer, I wouldn't think, oh, let's move forward with this and turn it into a film, and they were maybe passable. But then I see the final film when it's all done, and I just think, wow, that really came together. So whoever picked this script to make, they saw something that I didn't, and it's obvious now because they were able to bring it onto screen, and now it has this wonderful life of its own. And that's part of the cool thing about filmmaking, though. It is a collaborative process. It's sometimes half a dozen people, sometimes several 2,000 people all coming together to make something real special. When you have that many different personalities and people bring their own thing to the table to create one singular piece of art, you end up with something that couldn't be made by just one person. It really is its own thing. I refer to it as intellectual DNA. It's like having a child. One parent cannot have a child. You need two parents to get that that extra bit of DNA, and then that child becomes something all their own just based on that. And I think films are the same way. There's an intellectual DNA. If you try and be a one-man band filmmaker, yes, you can do it. But I promise you, if you get some great collaborators in there, they will definitely help to make your film better. Although there is the risk at the same time that you get some of the wrong people in and it becomes a war over who's in charge. And
sure. And I'm very much of the mindset, like, I like being a one-man band with a lot of things. I like going at things and doing them myself, but I also recognize there's just certain things that I'm not good at that it's better to bring, rather than, you can't learn everything, although God knows I try. But sometimes you just have to recognize your own shortcomings and bring in someone who is dedicated to that craft, because they're going to elevate your film above a level where you could get it to yourself.
And you might actually be able to catch a few hours sleep if you know someone else is working on that thing. So,
that's the goal.
So I'm glad we're talking about this, because you told me something very interesting about the original draft of Dry Blood. You actually you actually did hire a script reading service to read your first draft?
No, not on Dry Blood. That was on the film that Kelton and I were trying to get off the ground beforehand. Okay. And I'd gone through that script. Now has been rewritten, I think, 13 or 14 times.
Oh wow!
But I, that particular script was I think the third or fourth script that I'd written. I've written, well over that at this point. But it was an earlier script of mine, and I brought it to a writing group. I showed it to as many people as possible. I got feedback, and I tried to just tighten it up and make it as good as it could be. And then I had heard about these script writing services where you could get, basically, they don't tell you who they are that are reading them, but they guarantee that it's a working Hollywood screenwriter, and you can pay a fee and send in your script, and then you get back what's called coverage, which is basically a synopsis of your film, and then their very detailed notes on what you can do, what worked and what didn't. And the thing I like about that process, in spite of the fact that you have to pay for it, but you're getting objective opinions from people who don't know you and that are anonymous. And that's very helpful. You have to have a pretty thick skin, I think, because at first it can sting, because they're going to tell you if something sucks, they're just going to say it. But it's incredibly helpful to have people around you that will tell you when something sucks. Even if you have to pay them.
Do you think?
But
sorry. Go ahead.
Ultimately, I think your goal as a filmmaker should be to make something as good as you can to your abilities, and if that's a service that's available to you, by all means take advantage of it. I learned a lot just through that process that I've then been able to apply to future scripts. And though I didn't go through that process on Dry Blood, because we pretty much, once we discovered that was the movie we wanted to make, we just hit the ground running with it, and that would have slowed us down a bit. But, on future scripts, I'm definitely open to going through that process again.
Did you find that they understood what you were trying to do? Because I think anyone who's writing a script probably is putting in some subtext or some symbolism. Do you think they were aware of that, or?
It's hard to say. It was more structural notes and things like that I got back. So, and the interesting thing is, I paid for a package that. And I'd tell you the name of the service, but they're actually defunct now. So, but there are many script reading services out there. But I paid for a package that would get me 3 writers reading this and giving me the same type of critique, and they all 3 had different things to say about the script. They all 3 liked it or disliked it for different reasons, and so it was kind of a nice way to just kind of get a variety of opinions, and where you can see. If there's overlap in critique, then clearly something is not working.
Right.
But if only one person didn't like something, and that their opinion still may be valid, but you knew if all 3 came together and said something didn't work, that was in fact something you'd want to change.
Now, with Dry Blood, another thing that you told me, and forgive me if I'm like, people tell me things and then I kind of rework them in my head. So correct me if I got any of this wrong, but I believe you had an original cut of the film that wasn't getting you into any film festivals, and then a director came along and gave you editing notes. You followed them, and then suddenly you were getting getting into festivals and ultimately a distribution offer. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. So a little backstory on this, and I'll come back to that question.
Okay.
I'll try to long story short it as much as possible. But a friend of mine, Ryan Williams, who had actually started he started the company that gave me the coverage on the one script. But at the time when I used their services, he had moved on to another company at that point. But so he knew a lot about screenwriting because he's been in that world and he's written before. And his advice to me, we were having dinner, this was years ago, and I was trying to get some scripts made, and his advice to me was like, hey, if you want to get better as a writer, form a writing group. And it's going to lead to things that you can't even think of right now. So I took his advice and I formed the writing group. And through that writing group, because I was merging with people I knew, merging with another group, as I'd mentioned before, and I met a number of really talented people, that in that group, and everyone kind of went on to have their own level of success and various things. But one of the authors in that group was, or the screenwriters in that group was Nicole Jones Dion, and she's just a phenomenal screenwriter. She's written a number of projects, and she was friends with Sean Cunningham, who's the director of Friday the 13th, and he produced House and Last House on the Left, and he's just a big name in horror and really good dude. And through Nicole, Kelton Jones, Dry Blood director, and myself ended up meeting Sean, and he was kind enough to host a private screening for the early cut of Dry Blood at his house. So prior to doing that, we had submitted Dry Blood to a few festivals and hadn't gotten any response to speak of. And then we showed it to him, and he was very blunt and just gave us some very direct feedback about what worked and didn't work. And I took that to heart because obviously I'm a fan of his work and I appreciate his insight. And Kelton and I both, obviously. And I did a new cut of the film. I think I chopped out, I'm not positive, but I think it's about 17 minutes I cut out of the runtime.
Oh, wow. And
it really helped the film. And, the film is a bit of a slow burn. I like slow burns, and that's kind of, what we were going for, more of like a late 70s paced type horror film. But cutting out stuff that didn't really need to be in there really helped the pacing a lot. And then once I did that cut, we ended up getting into a bunch of festivals. So thank you, Sean. You rule.
We're gonna do for the post show. We're gonna do a spoiler talk for Dry Blood. No spoilers in the current episode, but I might ask you a bit about what some of those cuts were out of curiosity.
Sure.
So, and the production of Dry Blood itself. I mean, like I said, you guys use resources. I believe it was your brother's house in the mountains that you shot it in.
Yeah. I was writing the script, and I had lunch with my brother while I was writing the script, and I told him about the script that I was working on, and then he liked the idea, and he volunteered to let us use his house, which big mistake on his part. But
because I believe you said there were some blood stains, and didn't you cut a hole in the wall or something?
Oh yeah. So there's like this little weird, creepy trap door in the wall that connects two rooms that's in the film, and that wasn't actually in his house. Once he told me that we could use his house, I started then retooling the script around the layout of his home, and for some reason I must have dreamed it, but I thought there was this weird little door that connected these two rooms, and it turns out that there's just like there's above in the main closet, there's like a shelf up top that connects the two. And for some reason, my brain had scrambled it into this weird little door that you could crawl through, which was not the case. But my brother was kind enough to let me saw a hole in the wall and build a little doorway there, which was awesome. But yeah, we got blood all over his house. I mean, there's still blood stains in his house. spilled so much blood in the upstairs bathroom that it actually leaked down to the bathroom directly underneath it, and the wood is still stained with blood.
Oh no. So yeah, good luck if he ever needs to sell that house. Good luck to the real estate agent on that one.
Well, now it's a movie house, So,
yeah, there you go.
It just increased the value exponentially.
You
right?
did your brother a favor. Yeah,
sure,
absolutely.
That's what I did.
So what was that experience like? Because originally you weren't going to star in it. It just kind of became a budgetary issue, and then I think you said Kelton said he would tell you if you sucked, but I thought you did a great job.
Thanks. Yeah, no, when I'm writing, I don't precast anything in my head. I don't think of, oh, this actor could play this role. I like the stories to take on a life of their own, and for the characters to be their own real people in my head, at least, So I didn't think I had no intention to act in the film or to act in general, I guess. But we realized as we were creeping through pre-production that we couldn't really afford to go SAG with this project. Basically, when you go SAG, part of your money is just is tied up in this whole SAG process, and you don't always know when you're going to get it back. And when your budget is super tight, we just made the decision, to go non-union. And then the director suggested that since I had written the script and knew the character well, that maybe I should try to play him. And I was reluctant to do it, but so I just let Kelton know that if we go through rehearsals or whatever and you don't like my performance or it's not working, you got to tell me, so then we can just get a real actor in. But he liked what I was doing, so then as revenge, I suggested that he play the cop, and
which I thought he did a really great job of as well.
Oh yeah, and he was great, and arguably the most likable character in that film for sure. And he's actually gone on since Dry Blood and acted in a number of things. He's got another feature film coming out later this year called what is it called? Crap, I'm forgetting. It's going to come to me. The House Down the Street or something like that, I think. Anyway, if you IMDb Kelton Jones, you'll find it. He's been in a ton of things since we did Dry Blood.
Oh, that's really great to hear. Yeah, I enjoyed his performance, and he brought a lot of character to that role in a way that was fun to watch. And I'm not going to spoil anything other than that. We might talk about it more again in the post show. But I definitely, there were some standout moments with him this is maybe a post-show conversation, but there was one specific suggestion that he had, which was his condition to play the cop in the film, and I loved the suggestion, but it's a spoiler suggestion, so we can talk about that in the post. Okay, definitely. So I want to talk a bit about the effects too, because you guys are, generally like me, you're practical effects fans, but there's some really wonderful opportunities that modern digital affords us, and they worked out really well. You ended up doing those yourself too. Some of them, I think you said you had to do frame by frame.
Yeah, there's a number of effects in there. We tried to keep everything as practical as possible and tried to keep the digital side of things just in terms of cleanup or things that would be not noticeable, or if it was just an effect that was too outlandish to do completely practical or beyond the scope of our budget, then we came in with some digital help, or compositing practical elements together, that sort of thing. But I was directing a music video for my own band, System Sin, several years ago, and Kelton was the director of photography on that, and I had realized early on in that process, well, not early enough, but that I couldn't afford to do all the digital effects that I wanted. I couldn't hire the quotes I was getting back for the digital effects that I wanted in that music video were easily 10 times the full budget of the video, because it was a pretty ambitious script for the video. And so I just decided, hell, I'll just learn how to do it myself. And so I did. And I was able to apply that knowledge to pretty much every project I've done since. And Dry Blood then was like a masterclass in how to figure shit out. So, again, sorry for the cursing. So that's a great way. If you're making an independent film, you can do so much on your home computer that you don't know you can do yet. And I'm going to give a plug for a site that I am not affiliated with in any way, but it's just a great site. It's called Video Copilot.
Oh, yeah.
And, if you go to Video Copilot, it's basically tutorials for After Effects, and they have a lot of plugins, many of which are free. And the tutorials are all free, and you can just watch every video on that site for free and teach yourself how to do visual effects and save yourself so much money. Or if you don't have a budget to begin with, you can suddenly start creating things that are beyond the scope of your budget because you know how to do it. So I highly recommend that site.
Yeah, a lot of those tutorials are by a gentleman named Andrew Kramer, who just blows my mind every time with stuff he comes up with. I will kind of add this as a caveat. Hold on a second, I'm going to cough, sorry. Excuse me. But I was just going to say, one of the pitfalls that I see that people who go to a Video Copilot fall into, which is easily avoidable, but for their project, they'll take a tutorial and they'll just follow it step by step for the effect in their film, rather than taking what you learn from creating that effect and mixing and matching, or seeing how you can do variations on it to get different results or apply them to effects maybe you didn't think of. So there'll be times where I'll watch people's short films and I'll go, oh, I know what tutorial they watched.
Sure. All the time. Yeah, you're not going to... If you watch Dry Blood or any of the videos I've done, or any of the short films or music videos, things like that, you're never going to see an effect in there that you can say, oh, I bet that's from this tutorial, because exactly that. I don't want people to know. I want people to see the recipe. I just want them to see the final meal. Yeah. And so you can just watch as many tutorials as you can, and you pick and choose. I make notes of the things that really click with me, or if there's a cool shortcut on how to do something, I'll just make a note of it and just kind of try to remember what steps for various processes are in which tutorials, and I'll go back and rewatch them over and over again. So by the time I'm hit with a real life issue that I need to problem solve around, I have that reservoir of information that I've learned from just watching other people who have gone before and figured the stuff out already.
Yeah, we definitely stand on the shoulders of giants, but I will say that, again, with Dry Blood, when I was watching it, some of the visual effects, I do visual effects as well, so I'm able to spot them, but if I hadn't, I would have definitely been scratching my head wondering how you managed to do some of that stuff, because again, this is another thing that I don't see every visual effects self-taught artists do. The care in making them sure that they really did match up and look like they were part of the scene. Spot on. You did a great job with that. And
thank you.
There's what I'm saying, and this is for the audience listening, there is a real air of quality to Dry Blood. There are some very shocking moments in Dry Blood that even made me squirm. And you actually got. I'm not one. Usually, I see a jump scare coming. There was a couple of moments where I was actually like, you successfully scared me as well.
Thank you.
Which is not easy to do. But I always I like being scared in movies. It's part of the fun. I always kind of joked, if movies got scared enough, I would very proudly carry a pillow into the theater with me so I could hide behind it. Because I just enjoy doing that sort of thing. But so again, I've gushed about this film, and I do it very sincerely. So you got into the film festivals, and you ended up getting distribution through Dread Central. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about both the audience response and, maybe if you can, a little bit about the, I know there's probably non-disclosure stuff, but a little bit of the experience of finding distribution and what they did for you.
Sure. Well, yeah, so we went the festival route, and the idea behind going to festivals for us was that we made an indie film, it's on lower budget level. It doesn't have any stars. So we had to do whatever we could to get people to know about the film, because it's not like, hey, did you see the new film with Tom Cruise? No, it's did you see the new indie horror film that came out in a sea of indie horror films? And so we wanted to do something at least that would get people hearing the name and interested in it. So we decided to do that by going the festival route. And, although Kelton and I have both worked in the film industry, and, Graham, our DP, and lots of, Rin, his wife, who is was a stunt coordinator and an associate producer, and she's in the film as well. We'd all worked in the industry for a while, but none of us are names in the film industry. Not that we hadn't worked in there enough to like where our name alone could sell the film, because it was our first feature that we were putting together ourselves, and we didn't have stars, so we went festival route, and we went the festival route, and we amazingly started to win some awards at festivals for all kinds of different categories. We took home several Best Film Awards, Best Director for Kelton. I got a few Best Actor awards. Jamie got some Best Actress awards, and I think we racked up over 30 awards with an additional 15 nominations from our festival circuit. If you go to IMDb, it says like 5 awards or whatever, but they don't have all the numbers. But if you look at dryblood.com, you can see all the things that we won or were nominated for. So we had a very successful festival run, and what that did is that helped us get enough exposure to where distributors started coming to us. Early on, I wrote distributors, sales agents, and things like that, and I didn't really get any luck. But once the film on its own started picking up steam through the festival circuit, distributors started coming to us, and I believe we received a total of 9 offers from different distribution companies, and we ended up going with Dread Presents. And Dread, we went with them for a number of reasons, but for one thing, Rob Galuzzo, who plays the clerk in Dry Blood, actually runs Dread Presents. But at the time when we cast him in the film, Dread Presents did not even exist. I mean, Dread Central's been around, but the Epic Pictures partnering with them to create Dread Presents is a new thing, know. And before then, we had already received a number of offers, but I was still working on deliverables, which, for those who don't know, that's all the stuff, all the different files and paperwork that you have to give to your distributor so that they can release the film. So I was still working on those, so I hadn't committed to any distributor. And then Rob had formed this Dread Presents with Epic Pictures, and I met with them and really liked what they had to say, and I liked that this particular distributor was putting in a lot of energy into promoting every film. It wasn't like they shotgun 20 films all at once and then just see which one succeeds by happenstance. Every film they put out, they just put a great effort into marketing and getting it out there, and I liked that about them, because a lot of the other companies, and I won't mention them, I don't want to disparage them, and I do appreciate offers to release the film, but they were also releasing tons of other films at the same time with no clear marketing strategy for how our film would stand out. So, but that wasn't the case with Dread, and that was the big appeal. And obviously, I've been incredibly happy with what they've done. They've been able to get us out on a number of platforms and get us tons of press for the film. So
right, yeah. Amazon on Tuesday, right?
Yeah, this Tuesday, the 16th, April 16th, Dry Blood comes out on Amazon Prime. It's already on there now, if you on video on demand, but it comes out on Prime for free streaming, so you can check it out. Although I don't want to discourage you from buying the Blu-ray, because the Blu-ray has like a cool 35-minute long making of featurette, which is pretty fun, and then also has directors and writers commentary and the trailer and subtitles and things like that. So
that's awesome. And I also will encourage people to buy the Blu-ray, simply because I really enjoy owning physical media. I know people who have thought they owned a movie on their, when they bought it online as a VOD thing, and later found that it was gone. So it's always good to be able to own physical media. You never know when it's on the internet when it's going to go away.
Definitely. And, it's also a great way to support independent filmmakers. I mean, obviously, I'm being selfish in saying that because I am an independent filmmaker, but I mean, it really does help. When you're at this level, we're not making a ton of money off of films at all. It's a struggle just to recoup the money that you put into your film when you're working at this level. So by actually buying a physical product, that really helps out in a big way. I mean, even if you can't afford to, even watching it on Amazon Prime, that's a great way to support the filmmakers too, because we do get paid for those views. It's a very small amount compared to what you would get off a Blu-ray, but it all adds up and it's all super helpful. So
and the more people view it online too, the it brings up the visibility.
Definitely. And if you watch it and you like it, tell a friend, and that helps too. And not just for Dry Blood, but for any independent film, because the independent films really are labors of love. It's people who want to come together and give up years of their life to put out a work of art for you to enjoy. And that's a great way to thank them, is just by, if you enjoyed it, just tell people about it, because that's why we made it. We want people to see it.
And I'm gonna kind of also give props to Dread Central, because you obviously care about your film. They obviously care about horror. I've talked to some people at Dread Central, and they get excited about horror. They genuinely do care. You can see that from the reporting on their website as well. And it's there's a saying that I forget which, it was another YouTuber said, but you can pay people to do pretty much anything you need them to do except to care.
That is true. And
so it's always nice to know when people care about that. So in terms of not disclosing your budget or any details about your distribution deal, but have you found that it's been a learning process? Like, when you make your next film, do you have ideas about how you're going to make it so you can streamline the process and maybe recoup more money or make a profit, or keep the movies rolling out?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot, and I'm continuing to learn, even just going through the process now of where the film is out, and then you're just going through doing press and trying to get people to watch it. The entire thing has been a learning process, and it's everything I've learned I'm going to apply to the next film. But I don't think the next film's going to get easier, because the more I learn, the more ambitious I want to be with the next project, and that I don't know definitively yet what the next project will be, because I have a lot of irons in the fire and trying to get different projects off the ground. So it's really kind of comes down to what can I get funded next. But I will say, whatever that ends up being, it's going to be more ambitious, and I will definitely put into effect all those things that I've learned in this process, and hopefully to produce. I mean, the end goal is just to make a good movie. That's just what I wanted. I just want to make something good. And then hopefully, if you make something good, it will find its audience and be successful.
Well, that's one of the things that kind of sounds like it should be obvious, but I know that there are some filmmakers out there. They're more interested in being filmmakers than they are in making something good. So you have one up on them there. The other thing I like about Dry Blood, which I will say, is I've always found that horror is an interesting genre in that it has its hardcore fans who they know who all the scream queens are. They go to the conventions, they get autographs, they take pictures and that sort of thing, and they're so diehard and so dedicated. But it's also there are a lot of what I call normies who love horror as well. I was talking to my younger daughter's crossing guard, that I talk to every morning at school. And I told her about Dry Blood, and she's like, "Oh, I want to see that," And she's like the sweetest person. And then you ask her, she's like, "Oh no, I like horror." And like, "Well, what kind of horror do you like? Saw, Hostile, like it's this really brutal stuff." And she's so sweet. And nice, and you just know, she doesn't know anything about the horror community or the horror industry or something like that. And I find, I used to work at a movie theater, and I found that, people show up for horror. They enjoy being scared, and like me, they kind of enjoy hiding behind their eyes or screaming. There were people that made a show of like getting up out of their seat and running out of the theater and taking a few minutes to come back in. And it's all like, I'm sure that there's some like melodrama of their own behind that, but it's all part of the fun. But like I said, these people are, you see like guys come in with their girlfriends, and their girlfriends are like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle this. They're like psyching themselves out. So there's I think that Dry Blood is definitely a movie I think that would appeal to people who aren't generally horror fans and would kind of like shock and scare them. And I think it's kind of fun to create horror that is on such a universal level that, yeah, it appeals to both the hardcore fans and the people who, once they leave the theater, they don't think about it. But when you have them there for the time, they're really into it.
Thanks. I mean, that's the goal. You want to just, you want to make stuff that people are going to enjoy and hopefully want to watch again at some point. And, we tried to, with Dry Blood, we tried to be actually pretty subtle about a lot of the stuff. I mean, there's some very non-subtle things in Dry Blood, but I think there's a certain amount of the film that you don't fully absorb on the first viewing. And that's one thing we wanted to do too, is we didn't want to spell out too much, and we wanted to put all the pieces there so that you could piece things together, but we also wanted to make it a film that would almost force you to think about it after you left the theater or turned off the DVD, and make you want to go back and watch it after you start churning over in your head, just to piece together what things that you may have missed in the first viewing.
Yeah, I actually likened it when I saw it to kind of, I think I called it in my own mind, an indie film response to The Shining.
Definitely, yeah, I can see that.
Because it has some similar themes in terms of the mental state of the characters involved, and it's also up in the mountains. Except in The Shining, they're snowed in. It's too much snow. In yours, it's the off season for skiing. So but it's in both ways. There's kind of a sense that the location itself is part of the problem that the character has to overcome. So again, that's getting into spoiler territory. But anyway, I think actually I'm just dying to dig into spoiler territory. So
let's do it.
I think we'll wrap up this show. We'll go into the post show, which is available for my Patreon supporters. It's patreon.com/Christopher Moonlight. And I will put links to dryblood.com and Dread Central, where you can order a copy of the Blu-ray if you'd like to get that. And if you're like me, you enjoy behind the scenes footage, so I'm gonna look forward to seeing that as well. Is there anything you want to add though for the audience before we sign off?
Yeah, just if you watch the film and enjoy it, thank you. Well, even if you don't enjoy it, if you watch the film, thank you very much, because it means a lot just to get people out there watching it. And if you do like it and you want to help the film succeed and get in front of more people, things that are very helpful. One, tell your friends about it, post about it online. Or two, if you can take the time to write us a review on Amazon or iTunes or anything like that. All of those things help the visibility of the film. And if you enjoyed it, it helps other like-minded people know whether or not it's something that they might enjoy.
Also, IMDb, I believe, ties into Amazon. So if you write a review on IMDb, that's...
Reviews anywhere are welcome. Yeah, definitely. It all helps.
Is Dry Blood on Rotten Tomatoes?
It is on there. I think you can find it on there, but I don't think it has enough ratings yet to... Because it's an indie film and it's so new, it doesn't have enough ratings yet to have a Rotten Tomatoes score. But I think if you're a Rotten Tomatoes reviewer, you can review it at this point. And then eventually, once it builds up enough reviews, then they give it a score.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Clint, thank you very much for being on the show again.
Thanks for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, check out Dry Blood. This one's worth it, I promise. It's a very good indie film. So, all right. Signing off.